Hi, I'm Mitch from Hard Intentions YouTube channel. We also have HARDINTENTIONS.com where we sell t-shirts, hats, stickers. We just came out with a new sticker, the Singing Devil. It's pretty cool. We have a limited edition of those. We will get more in the future, but they are available on HARDINTENTIONS.com. You know, I've talked about my t-shirts, my artwork and stuff like that in the past, and I just want to say that, you know, I did all this artwork in prison. The stuff you see behind me, we sell prints of. I do some original stuff for guys upon request. Yeah, it's a dream I had in prison for many years, is to sell prints of my art, originals and t-shirts and all that. And so I just want to say that we're really grateful for the people that visit our site and buy stuff, because it's a validation of my dream. You know, you know, I try to get cool stuff out to you guys and ladies. We have a lady shirt. We'll have more lady shirts in the future. Our new shirt, the Hammer Drop's going to be coming this week. I just went by the print shop, and he's going to have some coming this week. I just want to say thank you for that stuff. Also, you guys have heard me talking about the hobby shop, doing hobby work in prison, stuff like that. You know, I did woodwork in prison, and a lot of guys did leather work, jewelry, ceramics. Guys did some really cool ceramic work. I did woodwork, and so you know, this is I'm doing a little woodwork here. This is one of my projects. It's a little toy airplane. I used to make these in prison in the hobby shop and sell them. So I have a little outdoor wood shop here, and right now it's snowing, raining where I live. So you know, I can't finish up my project. Seeing the green bag behind me, I got some wings all set up, ready to go. We're talking about excuse me, possibly getting a 20-foot cargo container and turn it into a wood shop or a tough shed, something like that, so I can start doing woodwork all year along with my art and other things. They took most of the hobby shops away in the prison system, so that's a really sad deal, because I took milling cabinet, and you know, and then I used to do woodwork in a hobby, so it was cool. You know, my last video I talked about Todd, my old cellie. He was a pretty cool dude. You know, he was a first termer. He was my cellie, and I tried to school him as best I could about how I saw a prison system, you know. And one of the things I told him was not to, you know, to stay out of gangs. And he didn't listen to me. He ended up joining a gang, prison gang, and at one time it was kind of fashionable to do that. A lot of guys hooked up, and you know, around 99, 2000, around there, they locked them all up, along with the previous prison gang that had slammed for, and they all stayed slammed for many, many years, and you know, got him a lot of trouble. He ended up getting a death sentence at one point, but you know, he was a really good kid. I liked him a lot, and I think if he had a little better influence as a younger man before he came to prison, he would have done some positive things with his life. You know, he's ended up becoming quite an artist, I heard, on death row. His lawyers talked to me at one point, and so anyway, there at Donovan, he moved out, and then a guy from San Diego moved in with me. He was in a motorcycle club. I did some tattoo work on him, and then later on I moved in with a homeboy of mine. You know, and when we were cellies, I remember when we were cellies, there was a guy in a tier I didn't really like, and Marty. But I used to clown people, you know, so I go up to this youngster, Shaggy, and he's at the canteen window. I said, "Hey man, don't you owe me a Snickers bar?" You know, and I used to clown guys like that, and then laugh, pat him on the back, you know, walk, you know, hit the yard, whatever. And the guy standing next to him is his cellie, this guy Marty, and I remember he says, "Hey, we'll pass it out in the building. Don't worry about it. We got you." So I was like, "What the fuck's that guy talking about?" You know. And so I asked Nick, "What's the fucking deal with that?" You know. And so he tells me, hey man, that kid Shaggy, when he was 18, his girlfriend was 16 or 17. And so her mom called the cops and got this kid for statutory rape. So he has a statutory rape on his girlfriend when he was 18, she's 16 on his file. And so Marty, his cell, he tells him, hey man, you know, the Woods want to get you because you got a rape on your file. Well, hell, I didn't even know, you know. And so what he's doing is he's taking this guy's canteen, most of it. He's got the guy's grandma sending him a package every quarter, and he's telling him, you know, I'll pass this out with the whites, and we'll keep him off you. But really just keeping it for himself. So he's working this kid out of his shit, right? And so he tells me that, man. I'm like, man, that's a bunch of bullshit, you know. And if this fucking kid, you know, people check it out, and it's true. You know, he was with his 16-year-old girlfriend or whatever. He was just a teenager. To me, that's not a rape. And to a lot of other guys, it's not a rape. Just a few guys knew what was going on. So I got pretty pissed off. And I told Nick, yeah, I'm going to fuck this dude up, man. So I came in off the yard one night, and mind you, I'm like 2 weeks to the board. That's when I was still going to the pro board. And the guy was standing right next to my cell, talking to my neighbor during unlock. And I came in off the yard, and as I was walking up to him, I mean, he just turned around right when I got within, you know, striking distance, man. And I hit that dude in the chest, sent him flying about 10, 15 feet on his ass, you know. And my homeboy goes, hey, not on the fucking tier, you know. So I went in the cell, man, and I said, bring that motherfucker in here. I'm going to beat him to death. I said, get your fucking ass in here, you know. I'm going to beat you to death, you know. And needless to say, he didn't come in the cell. And, you know, I told Nick, man, we got to fuck that dude up, man. You know, I didn't like what he was doing. He was pressuring this kid, taking his shit, you know, for some bullshit reason. So the next day, you know, we went up to his cell, and I said, hey, man, you got to get the fuck up out of here. And I went in his cell, and right when I turned around, as I'm watching the tier, I turned around, the dude grabbed me around the waist. I'm like, son of a bitch. Because the name of the game is get in the cell, get him up, fuck the dude up, and get out of the cell as quickly as possible, because the unlock only lasts like 5-10 minutes. So I told Nick, get this fucking dude up off me, man. And Nick kicked this dude in the guts like, I don't know, 15, 20 times. And my cellie at the time, he's like 6'7". He's a big guy too, right? And the guy let go of me, and then I pounded him in the face a few times, and we walked out of the cell, and that was the end of that, you know. And I told him, hey, don't be fucking pressuring these kids anymore. By then, they weren't cellies anymore. Anyway, so the next day, this cat that we beat down was standing by the front door, waiting for the unlock, you know. Like, hey, what's that dude standing over there by the fucking building for, you know? Sweating the door. Then they did the unlock, and we go over there, and there was a trail of turds going from the front door to that guy's cell. I guess we fucked him up pretty bad. He shit himself, you know. But yeah, I'll never forget that. A lot of guys got upset about that, and I told them, hey, you know, fuck you guys, man. If you guys want some too, you can have some too, man. I don't like that motherfucker, and I don't like what he was doing. I don't like the dude anyway. And once I heard what he was doing to the kid, you know, then we told the kid, hey, you don't know anybody anything, man. If anybody approaches you with that shit, you just get him up. You don't got to pay nobody nothing, you know. I don't like that pressure and shit. You know, a lot of guys are into that. I'm not. But, you know, Donovan was a trip, man, because it was a new prison, 270 design, which is the angles inside the building. It was pretty loose. They still had a lot of control because the yards were smaller and all that, but it was pretty loose. They had a hobby there. They had cell hobby there. And I used to go down the day room, and there was this guy, Danny. He used to paint. He was an older Mexican cat, you know, Chicano dude. He had already done a term. I think he did a manslaughter term. Then now at this time he had a 15 life, and he used to paint in the day room with acrylics, man. I used to watch him. He did some badass stuff, man. I mean, badass. He had this picture of this woman giving her kid a bath in a stainless or a big metal water trough thing, you know, like, but she was giving him a bath, you know, in there, and he turned that painting that photograph into a painting of a witch doctor like dunking a baby in an alley, and oh, it was just awesome. But I was watching him paint. He was good. Did a lot of Aztec stuff, a lot of Mayan Indian stuff. He was really into his culture, and I asked him a lot of questions, and then one day he came up, he gave me some red, blue, and yellow paint and a paintbrush and a piece of canvas. And that's the beginning of my painting career, you know. So after that, every paycheck I got, anytime I got a little bit of money, I'd run over to the hobby shop and order paint, brushes, you know, canvas, watercolor, paper, whatever I could get. And I just started painting, man. That was the deal. Yeah, I went from tattooing to drawing to painting. It was a progression. But Donovan had a job as a plumber, and I used to go to other yards and work. The yard I worked on was not the yard I lived on, so it was kind of cool. I got to get away, and you know, my boss was a Hispanic woman, and she had grew up in Logan Heights, and so which is a barrio down in San Diego. It was pretty rough. She grew up there, and you know, instead of falling into the mix, you know, she ended up becoming a plumber, and she was working in the prison as a supervisor. And I was actually working as a carpenter there. And one day she came in the building, and I said, man, where's my boss at, you know? And she's like, hey, why don't you come work with me? So I'm like, man, she never comes to work. I don't get to go to work. What the hell, you know? She goes, why don't you come work with me? And I'm like, well, I'm not a plumber. She says, I'll train you. So we go work, you know, and she asked me my real name. I told her Smiley. She thought that was kind of funny. So she trained me to be a plumber, you know. Little by little, I worked with her for about 3.5 years, you know, and developed a lot of trust, and I learned a lot of skills, you know. And the thing is, you know, you're going into other people's cells on other yards. Guy's toilet's messed up, his water's messed up. You go there, a lot of times they're not home. So there's a trust factor there, because if you got when she first hired me on, she had this guy Mike working for her, and he was a dope fiend, piece of shit, you know, and I kind of ran him off. And she watched how I just disrespected the guy every chance I got. And fat mouthed him, and anyone else, you know, if I talked to him the way I did to him, they'd want to get him up. They'd be like, hey, fuck it, let's go. Let's get it on. Or they'd stick a hole in your back, whatever. But this guy was a creep, man. And he was kind of abusing his little position, you know, being able to travel around. And he was like acting like a pouty little bitch sometimes. So I ran him off. And she kind of watched it happen, my boss. And she didn't say anything, so I just proceeded to run the guy off. It's little things, like we had a golf cart we used to travel around the prison in, so I would ride in the back because I was a new guy. But then once I started seeing how this guy was, he was kind of pouting about shit. He didn't like me working on the crew. He wanted one of his fucking dope fiend buddies to have a job. And after a while, I just started hopping in the front seat. And he'd come out of the building, I'd be in the front seat of the golf cart, and of course the boss drives it. And I'd say, get in the back. After a while, he was gone. Then I hired somebody on the crew that I wanted to work with, somebody I was comfortable to work with. And, you know, my boss kind of appreciated the fact that, you know, I show up to work on time. I go in other people's cells. They're not there to fix their shit. And she doesn't have to worry about me stealing their shit, rooting through their cell, you know, like a lot of creepy fuckers do. You know, stealing in prison from somebody is, it's a serious offense. We can get into that later. You know, cell thieves frowned on in prison, at least in California. Yeah, so I worked as a plumber with her for 3.5 years. I mean, I learned a lot of stuff. And what tripped me out is they would have water main blowouts in that prison a lot. So you got a big 6-inch main, goes into the building, feeds the building water, and they would blow out. And they would call us to go into no man's land, and that's the space in between the building and the fence. There's a space. Then there's a fence and it's a double fence. And so that's no man's land. On the other side of the building is the yard and everything. So inmates, they frown on them being out in that area. But man, when they had a water main blowout, they'd have a few of us out there working on it. You know, they have the backhoe out there. And I remember one time it was like 10, 11 o'clock at night, and they called us, and I mean, if we took, like, me and another guy, they took us out to this water main blowout with a free staff that came in overtime, you know. One of us drove the backhoe, the other guy was in the truck. Inmates driving the backhoe. I mean, you could take that backhoe and pull the damn fence down with it, you know. And but we're out there. We fixed the water main blowout, you know. We were out there till like 12 o'clock at night, and you know, we got kudos for that. Like, hey, good job. Part of my deal was my area where I worked in, the main kitchen was in there though, and there was a big dude in there. He was a prospect for a club, and I happened to know his cellie from a previous prison who was a club member, and so we became friends. And he used to drive the truck. He used to ride on the truck that delivered the food. See, no longer is it just one kitchen, cook it and serve it, where the kitchen's connected to the chow halls. Now you have a facility where they make the food, then they freeze it, and then maybe a day or two later they take it over to each facility in a truck, and then that facility heats it up and serves it. It's a pretty nasty setup. But they had bags of hamburger, vegetables. You know, we had hot pots there, little West Bend hot pots. And I'm a big fan of soup. You know, you put the carrots, celery, onions, and bell pepper in a pot, simmer it all day, dump it over your top ramen noodles. Sometimes you don't even need a flavor packet. It's so good. And if you run out of bell peppers, you can use a little cabbage, whatever you can get, you know. So I talked to old Keith, you know. I says, hey man, you know, what's the chances of getting some hamburger, you know, some vegetables? And you know, we got along pretty good. I did a little artwork for him, and he sent it to a sponsor on the street. And so he would come over on Sundays, you know, and I hooked it up where he would give the bag with the vegetables, 10 pounds of hamburger to a kitchen worker. And then when he had a, you know, opportunity, he'd come out of the little kitchen on the yard and give me the bag on a weight pile. And then my cellie and I would take it into the building, because when you go in the building too, you know, they watch the guys come through the door, and if you're like, you know, got a big bulge going somewhere, they're like, hey, come here, and they'll pat you down. So you got to get that shit in your house. And you know, it was pretty cool, you know. So we'd make hamburgers, you know, my hot pot, and we'd make soup. It's pretty cool. That's the kind of shit guys do to survive in there, man. You know, the food sucks. People have mentioned the food on some of the comments, and the food's terrible now. You know, food manager in DVI, she was pretty cool. Back then, when she was a food manager, Tracy, food managers were allowed to buy the food wherever they wanted to. Now they buy it from prison industry. Prison industry controls all the food in prison now, and it's nasty. So anyway, at Donovan there were no more steaks, no more pork chops, you know, no more half a chicken. See, when I went to prison up till Tracy, when they had chicken, they had a half a chicken. They'd split that chicken right down the middle, they'd bake them, and then you got a half a chicken when you went to chow hall. The roast beef was pretty much the thing in the past. It was down to about once a month, where we used to get it like once every 2 weeks. We'd have roast beef one week, roast turkey the next, you know. So Donovan, the food was pretty bad. I mean, really bad. They had these little hockey pucks, and one day it'd be a Santa Fe steak, next be something sausage, and they'd paint little grill marks on it. And it was chicken, beef, and soybean mixed, and it was just a gross, foul setup, man. They'd make you burp, nasty. So having that hookup in the kitchen like that was it was quite a deal, you know. And plus I was driving iron there. I used to drive iron 5 days a week, 2 hours a day, you know. At night after work I'd go out to the night yard, drive iron. You know, I was still in my early 30s, and yeah, I just like driving iron, you know. Before they took the weights there, I had a 500-pound bench, man, and that's a lot of iron, and it takes a lot of protein to build yourself up to that, man. So I was pretty pissed off when they took the weight. So anyway, that was a good deal there. You know, there weren't a lot of stabbings there in Donovan. There were occasionally. One of them, you know, I worked on the 2-yard, and I had a couple Mexican homeboys there. And, you know, I won't say their names, but they know who they are. And so they're out, you know. during lunch, they locked the yard up for like an hour or so, you know, just to give the cops a break. For some reason, the yard was in, you know. So these two guys were out there mowing the push mowers, you know, they're mowing the yard, the grass on the yard. And well, there was this dude, he was a child molester. They found out. He worked in the welding shop, and whenever the yard was locked down, this guy always got to come out. And he was always kind of on the cop's leg. He didn't do a lot of yard time, and so the yard was in. I guess he had got to go to the canteen or something. For some reason, he was on the yard, and they have a guard tower there in that yard, and right underneath it's a track, you know, so he can see out over the yard, but he can't see directly down. So these guys are mowing the yard. They're running little push mowers back and forth, you know, and the track's right here, you know, in that tower. So right when that guy, they timed it, so when that guy got up underneath that tower, they were right here on their little laps with the mower, and they ran over there and stabbed the piss out of that guy. Then they went over and threw their knives down this little drainage ditch and went back to mowing the yard like nothing happened, you know. And that tower didn't see it because it was right down underneath him, you know. And the guy laid there for a while before they seen him. But you know, my friend Filthy Frank, he's from Highland Park. He was in the cell waiting to tattoo on one of them guys. He goes, man, I don't know where dude's at, you know. He's my partner, man. Later on, we were cellies when I ended up moving that yard. But he goes, yeah, I was sitting up in the cell waiting for him to come get, you know, have him finish his tattoo. And fuck, never showed up. Next thing I know, you know, he's in a hole. But that was a good move, you know. That was a good move. Later on in Corcoran, when I was in Corcoran, I saw one of the guys got out of the shoe. I told him, hey, bro, that was a good move, you know. Then, you know, later on, there was a guy on another yard. When I went with the carpenters because they had no smoking now, right, within 30 feet of a state building. They hadn't done away with the smoking anymore yet, but they put up signs you weren't allowed to smoke inside the building. So we dug some holes, and we had these signs to go in the holes, and they were going to concrete them in, said no smoking, you know, blah, blah, blah. So we go over to the yard, and I was with this Indian cat I work with, you know, and he goes, hey, check that out, you know. I'm like, oh, yeah. There was a cat on that yard telling everybody that he was a Mexican dude, you know, that he was hooked up with a Mexican prison gang, you know, and he was taxing people, you know, taking their dope. I mean, he wasn't just like running the yard and shit. He was just taxing people, taking a cut of their dope that they brought in, you know, and shooting it, getting high. And so, you know, guys don't like that shit. They don't like to be punked out of their stuff. I don't care what race you are, right? So they found out he wasn't in the prison gang. He was just another motherfucker. And so we're on the yard. We're looking across the yard by the handball court. And they ran up behind that dude and stabbed him in the neck, the back of the neck. And dropped him like a sack of potatoes. I guess they cut his spinal cord or something, you know. And they ran in the building, you know, threw the knives on the roof and shit. And they did it right when there was an unlock, so they went in the building. And, you know, they busted him later. But that guy laid on the ground, you know, for like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes or more. He just laid there on the track. Nobody said shit, you know. They just let him lay there. And, you know, we're doing our thing. We got a concrete truck coming from the street to pour the concrete in all the holes for these signs, you know. And the truck just comes to the yard, and we're getting ready to do our thing, and some dude went up to the cop, man, and says, hey, there's a guy laying over there on the track, stabbed, you know, he's bleeding, and he's been, you know, whatever. Told me he's been laying there for a while, I guess. The yard went down, they ran over and took the dude off in the gurney and shit. But we were kind of pissed off because, you know, the yard's down. We're with our boss. She co-signs to say these two guys are with me. But we got a job to do. You know, we're kind of pissed off. Hey, man, we're going to do this job or not, you know. Concrete truck costs money. You pay for the concrete and you pay for the time it's there. So we were a little pissed off, you know. More so about that than a guy getting stabbed. Just that it fucked our program up, you know. that's just how prison is. You know, you get hardened about stuff like that. But I heard that dude died later on. I don't know if he's paralyzed just or died or what, but they fucked him up pretty good. You know, it was quite a deal. You know. Then I knew this older Chicano dude. They had brought, you know, California prisons. They say California, they say, is the most racist state in the country. Believe it or not, but you know, this the prisons really are racially separated, and that's the way it's always been. So they had a black dude there. He was ran around with the Southern Mexicans, you know, and there was an older cat there, kind of big-sized dude, and he goes, "Hey, Smiley, man, what the fuck's up with my people, man? You know, youngsters, you know, that dude. He'd been in what pen for a while, you know." I said, "Hey, brother, I don't know, you know, that's, you know, I'm white, you know, I don't really." And he goes, "Man, fuck, that dude's gotta go, you know." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, you know." Guy was good with the dude, you know. So, you know, at that time, man, whites and Mexican cats really still got along pretty good, you know. And I actually had quite a few friends that were, you know, Hispanic, Chicano, whatever, Southern Mexicans. I knew some Northerners in Tracy that were pretty decent and they volunteered with me. But anyways, he's like, "Hey, that fucking dude's got to go. I can't have that dude working out on my weight pile and this and that." I said, and I told him, "Hey, you know, once it got to a point where he's starting to talk about what he's going to do, I'm like, hey, brother, I'm good, you know." I said, "I'm white, you know, so it's none of my business really, brother, but I hope you work that out, you know." So the next day I came home from work and the yard was slammed. And I'm like, fuck, what happened, you know? So when I went in the building, he lived down in the first tier, and he's like, "Hey, you know, come here, you know." No one is out, everyone's in their cell. I'm like, "What's up, man?" He goes, "Hey, man, I whacked that dude, you know." I'm like, fuck, you know. But yeah, they came and got him, you know. I went to my cell, locked up, and before dinner, that was like 3 o'clock. So before chow time, right up, you know, before counts clear, we go to chow, he was gone. So that was a good pen. It was a mainline prison, right? But somebody told. Probably some of his own people told. You know, that's how it works, man. You start sticking holes in people, people get scared, and they tell. You know, that's just the way that goes, man. But, you know, nothing I could say about it. Now, if he'd have been a white dude, I'd have been like, "Hey, man, think about the consequences of what you're going to do," you know. There was a youngster there. I think he was 19, something like that. And, you know, he was on the weight pile, and, you know, he's like, "Hey, Smiley, what's up?" You know, all the time on me. And one time he goes, "Hey, man, how do I make my bones?" And I said, "Hey, look, man, this ain't a fucking prison to be making your bones." I go, "There ain't nobody here to make your bones for or with, you know. Everybody here, speaking, you know, whites, we're just regular dudes, man. There ain't nobody here to impress. You just do your motherfucking time and get the hell out." You know, he was in school. I said, "You get your fucking GED, do your time, and get the fuck out." He had like a year to do, you know, and he was a teenager, man. He was 19. And I just kind of, he's like, "Yeah, okay," you know. And then Todd told me, "Hey, that kid keeps asking about making his bones, you know." And I said, "Well, tell him," you know. Todd told me the same thing. I tell you, just fucking kick back, fool. There's a time to party and there's a time to fucking get with it. And this prison right here ain't the place to be getting with it. This is a place to fucking relax and party and make some money, enjoy life. You know, my thing is I don't want to have to do time miserable fuck unless I have to. You know, so anyway, he finally got with some asshole that told him how to make his bones, and he had him go and whack somebody. He had him go and stab somebody. He didn't do a very good job. He gave him a shitty piece. You know, one of them assholes gave him like a toothbrush with some razor blades on it or some bullshit. And the kid's in the hole, right? So now he's in the hole for stabbing. Even though it was a chicken shit stabbing, he's in the hole for stabbing. He ain't going home in a fucking year. I met this kid's mom in the visiting room, and she was a nice lady, and he was a good kid, you know. He was just misguided. So now, I told the dude, hey man, what the fuck, you know? Why'd you have that guy do that? Why don't you handle that, you motherfucker? See, that was my thing. These guys that weren't tipped up. They weren't hooked up in a gang or nothing. They're just dudes, and these kids look to them like for advice, and then they send them off on a mission. That used to piss me the fuck off. I'd tell me, hey, lame, why don't you go handle that shit yourself? You know, instead of wrecking that dude. You know, especially this kid. He's a first term with no time to do. So he's sitting in the hole now, and about a week later, I heard he's dead. I'm like, son of a bitch, man. What happened? You know? Well, evidently he went out to the yard, and there's a gun tower, and this kid's fighting, right? And so here's the guy he's fighting with, here's him, and then behind him is a gun tower, and the gun tower just sees the back of his head, and in front of him he sees the guy. Well, he's beating this guy up. It's probably a little blood. The cop says, oh, I thought he had a knife. He shot that kid, and he shot him in the back of his head and killed him. The gun tower, you know, he shot that kid in the head, man. And you know, I was very, very upset about it. A lot of guys were, but you know, I went and told that motherfucker. I said, man, it's on, motherfucker. You got that kid killed. You know, if he wouldn't have sent him on that fucking mission, he wouldn't have been in the hole. He'd be alive. He would have paroled to his mom. And all I could think about was, you know, how fucked up his mom was behind that. How bad she got hurt. I mean, that's her boy, you know. And that kid had a whole life to live, man, and he was dead. And that dude ended up staying in his cell and moving to another yard. Yeah, it was all bad for him. Dudes wanted to fuck him off. Yeah, that's prison, you know. That's prison. Guys go about their fucking business like it ain't like nothing ever happened. But you know what these youngsters don't understand is. You go to prison, you want to run with the homies. I've said it before, I'll say it now. There's guys that have been in prison for years and years and years, many years longer than you. They put in work, they've stabbed dudes, they've killed dudes. They know how to politic way better than you'll ever know how to politic. And I'm going to tell you something, man. They'll out-politic you. They'll have you doing shit that you thought never in a million years you'd be doing. But they'll have you doing it. And it's going to cost you, you know. It might cost you your life. It might cost you your life right there. It might cost you life by spending, you know, 30, 40 years in prison, dying in prison. You know, because of shit that you have to do in prison. Or you feel you have to do. Because some asshole's in there politicking and getting you, working you up to where you are in a position where you have to do something. So, you know, before you do something stupid out here in the fucking world, try to figure it out, man. So you don't have to go to prison, you know. So, anyway, I like to keep these videos about 30 minutes, and that's about it. So, we'll get back to it next time. I'm going to do a little painting on this thing back here. You guys enjoy your lives. You only get one. Please, hit the like button, subscribe, all that. And if you get a chance, go check out our website, HARDINTENTIONS.com. Thank you very much. And whatever you do, remember, do it hard.